Hey YouTube, it's Guy. Today on the review table, I've got a Seiko model SNA411 Flightmaster. The SNA411 Flightmaster is a quartz-powered flight chronograph. It features their E6B navigational slide rule bezel. It also has a 1/5 second chronograph, date complication, and it has an alarm subdial. Flightmaster comes in at a price point of between $200 and $225 on Amazon or your other favorite watch retail sites, be it Long Island Watch, Joma Shop, or whatever. Now, first thing I wanted to give you a quick look at, this Flightmaster came in a box that was quite a bit different than what I am used to. I mean, it did come in your standard white box that you normally get, slipcase plastic box from Seiko. But instead of getting the inner blue box that your watch comes inside, typically it's strapped down to a white Seiko pillow, it came in this plastic box. It's like a pod. I don't know, it's a little weird. I'd never seen one like that, so I thought I'd just give you guys a little look at that. Up on the front there, you can see there's some dimples, and then it says Seiko. Inside the box, it's kind of a pain to open, but I'll pop it open for you real quick. You know, the original hang tag is on the watch, of course, and the watch is strapped down to this plastic inner shell. So yeah, I just wanted to give you a quick look at that. That's a lot different than any of the other Seikos that I have gotten. But we'll go ahead and get that out of the way and talk about the watch itself. Now again, what we are looking at is the SNA411 Flightmaster model from Seiko, and it's quite a nice looking watch. Basic specifications for you before we really get into the meat and potatoes of this review. The case diameter comes in at 42 millimeters with 20 millimeter lugs, your lug width where the bracelet attaches. However, on my caliper, I measured it and it's maybe slightly over 20 millimeters, 20 and a half, maybe almost 21 millimeters. My caliper is just a cheap plastic one. Maybe it's not very accurate. So advertised lug width is 20 millimeters. The case thickness comes in at 13 millimeters. It's not a particularly thick case, which is typical for a quartz-powered watch. They don't tend to be all that thick. The lug-to-lug dimensions from the top to the bottom of the lugs comes in at 44 millimeters, which is a pretty short lug-to-lug width, but typical of Seiko. Their cases, while the overall diameter might kind of appear to be large on paper, like this one at 42 millimeters is a little bit on the bigger side because it has these short overall lug-to-lug width dimensions. Their watches tend to wear a little smaller than what the specifications might suggest. This watch does have a pretty nice domed Hardlex crystal, and we'll look at that closer, but there's a nice look at it. The dial is black, and it has applied markers and their glow-in-the-dark Luma-Bright paint applied to the markers and the handset. At the 3 o'clock position, we do have a date complication. Down at the 6 o'clock position, we have a subdial for the alarm, and over at the 9 o'clock position, there is a subdial for the current seconds. You can see that there's the big yellow second hand. That's the counter for the chronograph. That's not your active seconds. Your active seconds are at that 9 o'clock subdial. Up at 12 o'clock, there's another subdial, and that is for counting elapsed minutes when you're running the chronograph feature. Now, we also have 200 meters water resist on this watch, which is pretty atypical for a non-dive watch. This isn't a dive watch, this is a flight watch or a pilot's watch. And that it has a 200 meter water resist is pretty interesting. One of the reasons why it probably achieves that level of water resistance is because it has a screw-down crown, and the chronograph pushers are also screw-down. So that's pretty awesome. We also have a screw-down case back with no sort of exhibition window or any see-through window on the back, and of course you'd never have an exhibition window on a quartz-powered watch anyway. But you know, that's likely why we're getting that 200 meter water resist rating. Now we do have a bi-directional bezel that features a slide rule. It's not your typical elapsed time bezel that you would find On a dive watch, this bezel is a slide rule used to computate or calculate all kinds of different calculations or units of measure. We'll talk about that more extensively here shortly, but it is bi-directional. I wanted to point that out. The bracelet is a pretty nice stainless steel bracelet. It features dual locking clasp with a push button deployment on the side, which we'll also look at in more detail here in a little bit. Finally, this is powered by the Seiko caliber 7T62 quartz chronograph movement. Now, first things first, I will give you a little bit of information about that movement. Of course, being a quartz powered movement, it's really not a whole lot of special details to give you, but a few points of interest. Again, it is the 7T62 quartz chronograph movement. Advertised accuracy rather, plus or minus 15 seconds per month, or about a half second per day. It runs on an SR927W battery and has an advertised battery life of approximately 3 years. When the battery is coming on to low power, you will see the current running seconds, which are again at that 9 o'clock subdial. They will start advancing at 2 seconds per tick, and that will indicate that the current power source, the current battery, is running on low power. Now I'm going to go ahead and zoom in closer here so that we can really take a look at this dial. We'll talk about the quality and design of this watch. We'll talk about the features and functionality that we get from the slide rule rotating bezel, and overall just drill in here and get into some details. So yeah, 1 second, we'll get zoomed in. Alright guys, so the first thing that I want to point out about this watch is that it does have an alarm feature. And again, if you look down at the 6 o'clock subdial, it is showing a little tiny handset that is displaying the current time. Now, you could do a couple of things with that subdial. You could set it to be a separate time zone, so we could set it currently, the current time in my Eastern time zone is 4:33 roughly. So we could set that subdial to say, I don't know, 3:33, and it would be in the central time zone if we wanted to have that functionality. But that's not really what this subdial is for. It's to set your alarm. Now, the way you do that, I'm going to set it now so that we'll hear it chime in a little bit. The way that you set the alarm is you unscrew your crown and you pull it out to the first position, and now you unscrew the bottom pusher, and when you click on that bottom pusher button, you'll see that the minute hand on that 6 o'clock subdial will advance. So we're just going to advance it out a few minutes, and at approximately 4:37, I guess I have it set to, the alarm should go ahead and chime for us. So we can screw that pusher back in. We can screw the main crown back down so as to reinsure our water resistance. And we'll wait a couple of minutes here while I'm giving this review, and hopefully that alarm will chime and give an example of how that works. Now, one thing to note about the alarm is I believe you can really only set it for up to 12 hours in advance of the current time. So, again, the current time is now about 4:35. It can only be within the next 12 hours since it's a 12-hour dial. So keep that in mind. It's not like you could set it to go off necessarily, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. because, that would be 16 or 18 hours from now or whatever. So anyway, yeah, that's basically the functionality of that alarm. Is you just set it for sometime in the next 12 hours and you'll get a notification when that time has come to pass. Now, aside from the alarm subdial, let's talk about the case a little bit. It's typical standard Seiko case. The sides are a nice, but not incredibly high quality polished finish, but it looks pretty good. The top of the case and the top of the lugs are a brushed stainless steel finish, And overall, it's, again, a large diameter, but sort of a compact package because of that short overall distance between the top and the bottom lugs. Overall, I really like the design of this case because, again, there's a whole lot going on in the dial, there's a whole lot going on in the bezel, but because it's sized the way that it is, it doesn't feel overwhelming. It really wears well on the wrist, and typical Seiko quality at this price point. So if you own any other Seikos in the $100 to $300 or $400 price range, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get a pretty decent case that has a mixture of polishing and brushed finishes. But overall, I'm quite pleased with the case, as you could expect. Again, the crown and the pushers are screw down. The main crown isn't signed with any sort of logo or anything. It's just polished on the end with some knurling so that you can get a good grip on it. The same can be said about the chronograph pushers. They screw down nice and snug. They unscrew relatively easily. The very first time I unscrewed the main crown, it was exceptionally tight, and I kind of had to use a little cloth to get... Well, there we go, to interrupt us. Our alarm functionality has started to chime, and it will run for approximately 20 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. And then you can go ahead and reset it for the next time you want to use it. So yeah, there you go. That's the alarm feature that I wanted to show you guys. Now back to the crown and pushers. Yeah, screws down nice. The crown out of the box was very, very tight. Just might have been my example. Maybe it was a little bit over tightened. I don't know. It doesn't seem to affect anything. Once I got that seal broken the first time, it's been fine ever since. The size on the main crown is a little bit big, but not a detriment to itself. It's since it's got no crown guards on the case here, though, it just feels a little bit oversized. But I think, when you're talking about a pilot's watch, things tend to be oversized. If you look back at classical pilot watches, analog pilot watches from the World War II era, everything's kind of oversized on that. The dial's oversized, the crown's oversized. It's so that you can operate these mechanisms maybe with gloves on, so that you can see it in low light better, things of that nature. The crystal, which we touched on briefly, it is Seiko's Hardlex crystal, but it has a nice dome to it, and I'll bring it up in an angle here so you can kind of get a real good look at that. It's not extremely domed, but there's enough of a dome that what it does is it adds a little bit of magnification, so that reading this very small fonts and indices on the dial, I think it assists in the legibility a little bit because of that dome adding a bit of magnification. I don't think that it's anti-reflective, and you can see as I run it past my studio lights that there is a bit of reflection there, but in your average day-to-day wear, it's not so reflective to be a problem. And I think that this might be one of the nicest crystals in this price point for a Seiko that I've experienced as far as the legibility. Again, how it kind of magnifies everything. Reading this dial is a lot easier than I might expect, particularly when I take into account the fact that I have relatively bad vision and all of the printing on this dial is quite small. So yeah, the crystal on this is kind of a home run in my opinion. Now the dial itself, it is quite busy, which you would expect because of all of the calculations that you can perform with that slide rule bezel. Now at the 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, and 11 positions, you have nice circles that are applied indices with, I don't know how well it'll show up on camera, but they have a nice little stainless steel outline on those indices. They're applied with Seiko's Lumibright, so they glow in the dark very nicely, as you would expect. The dial also has a date complication at the 3 o'clock position. It is a white date window with black text. It's excellent, very legible. Seiko branding, chronograph 200 meter, there next to the date window. Again, we have these subdials, the 6 o'clock subdial being the alarm feature, the 9 o'clock subdial being the current seconds, the 12 o'clock subdial being the elapsed minutes when you're running the chronograph. The handset themselves also feature LumiBrite on the hour and the minute hand, and there's even a pip of LumiBrite on the Chronograph's second hand. That nice yellow chronograph hand at the arrow end has a little pip of LumiBrite on that as well. Overall, it's even if you're not into all of the calculations and functionality that this watch has to offer because of all of the scales on the dial and on the chapter ring and this rotating slide bezel, it's just a really cool looking piece in my opinion. It looks very technical, it looks really sporty, it looks very functional, and you know, even if you're never going to calculate like fuel consumption rates while you're flying a plane, this is a nice looking day-to-day watch. You know, I just want to point that out. That's my opinion. As far as the rest of the dial, it's all of that chapter ring text and all of the stuff on the bezel, that all applies again to the slide rule functionality. Now let's take a quick look. I don't think I pointed out very closely the case back. Again, it doesn't have any sort of exhibition or see-through window. It's just a stainless steel screw-down case back with the Seiko logo and a little bit of information printed on there. Yeah, you know, basic standard fare for this type of watch. Now, the chronograph features, we'll talk about that briefly. Pretty standard stuff. You can unscrew the top pushers, screw down lock, and the bottom pusher. And the top pusher is the start-stop mechanism, so you push that in and you can see the yellow second hand takes off. After some period of time, if you were, I don't know, using this as a tachometer to figure out, you know, current speed or something, you'd push that button again to stop it. Pushing the button again starts it right back up. And if you want to, you can push the bottom button while it's running to pause it. Now, while it is paused in this state, it's still running in the background, and when you push that, it's going to jump the second hand up to where it currently should be in the count. So there you go, it snaps right back up to where it belongs. Again, that top 12 o'clock dial will count the elapsed minutes as you're running the chronograph, but we're not going to run it long enough for that dial to tick. Take my word for it that it does work. After every minute elapses, that top ticker will flip to the next position. Pushing the stopper again at the top, or the pusher up at the top, will stop the chronograph, and then the lower left or lower bottom pusher is the reset. So then you are reset back to the original start position. And that's basically it. I think there's a way to do multiple split times and multiple start-stop times, but I have no use for that. I didn't really read into the manual closely on how that functionality works. If you're interested and you get this, you know, you can learn about that, and you can tell me down in the comments below, like, oh, hey guy, this is how that stuff that you didn't learn about works. Speaking of things that I haven't learned about, let's talk about this bezel and the bi-directional slide rule. This bezel, again, is bi-directional, so it spins both ways. Unlike your typical dive watch, where the bezel will be unidirectional and only spin one way. With a combination of using this bezel and the inner chapter ring with all of those little notations all around the outside edge of the dial, you can do a whole bunch of complicated math and calculations. Now, I'm not going to give you any examples of how to do the different calculations on this, but I will give you a general overview of what it's capable of. And it's a pretty long list, honestly. Here's basically the gist of what you can do with the combination of this watch's slide rule and all of those different scales on the chapter ring. You can do multiplication, division, rule of three calculations, square root of numbers. You can do time and speed and distance calculations, fuel consumption and quantity required calculations, time remaining for cruising, climbing, altitude, rate and time. You can do conversions including distance, fuel, volume, and weight, and the slide rule also has a bearing compass scale, so you know your north, south, east, west, and everything in between. I think that's about everything that it's capable of doing, which is, to say, quite a bit. Very complicated. I looked at the manual that it comes with. It's a 30-some 40-page manual in English, and of course it has all of the different languages, but the English section of that manual just on the slide rule is like upwards of 30 to 40 pages explaining all of the stuff that you can do. Quite complicated. Probably very useful though if you need to do those calculations on the fly and you don't have some sort of computer or application to do it. You know, just a simple analog computer. That's basically what this thing is. Yeah, but overall, like I said, if you just like the look and the aesthetic of this watch, I can't fault you for that. I would wear it just because, again, I like the look of it. I don't think I would use any of those calculations almost ever. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I would use it for like division or something if I had to do some sort of long division, then I couldn't do it in my head. Maybe I'd learn how to use that functionality because I'm bad at division. But realistically, there's not a whole lot that I would use on this on any sort of daily, day-to-day use. But who cares? It's really cool, right? Now, another thing that we can talk about is the bracelet on this guy. It is a nice metal bracelet. It has solid end links, which is great for a watch at this price point. See if I can zoom in there and you can see those end links. They are nice solid end links, so not a lot of rattling or clicking or squeaking from those. The bracelet itself has a combination of really nice polished center links, or the inner section of the links, with a satiny brushed finish on the outer sections of the links. Now, like most watches at this price point, the clasp is probably the shortcoming, but it's not terrible. The clasp is, again, a dual locking push button deployment clasp, so you have a nice little fold over portion to the clasp. Once that's open, you have push buttons on either side that open it up. All of the metal that makes up this clasp, though, including the elbow folding gizmo and this clasp, the main buckle part, it's all very thin, cheap stamped steel. Probably durable enough, as has been my experience with all Seiko watches, but not super high quality by any means. One downfall about this clasp is it only has 2 little micro adjustment holes. That's a big letdown. I prefer to have anywhere from 4 to 5 or more even. So you would have a longer clasp overall, but you'd have a lot more options in being able to adjust the fit on the fly if, you know, for whatever reason the watch didn't need a whole link taken out but was a little snug or a little loose on you. So yeah, I wish there was a few more micro adjustment holes. You know, overall, that's basically it. That's the SNA411 Flightmaster. It's really nice looking watch. I guess I could give you a quick wrist shot of it. Let me take off my current watch and zoom out the camera, and I'll let you know what it looks like on my roughly 7-inch wrist. So there we go. There's the SNA411 Flightmaster on my wrist. 7-inch wrist, kind of an average size, maybe medium would be a good way to describe it. And it looks right at home in my opinion. I really like the look of this watch. Not too big, and again, it's because the overall width of those lugs from top to bottom, the height, if you will, of this watch, doesn't like wrap around my wrist. It fits good. It does stand out. It's bold, but not bad in my opinion. If you had a smaller wrist, something around 6.5 or under, maybe you would find it to be a little large, but I think that's going to be your experience with most, you know, a lot of watches out there that are over 40 millimeters in diameter. So if you don't have a real small wrist, I think that you're going to find that this watch wears pretty nice. So I'm going to go ahead and get that off, and we'll just talk about some closing thoughts and sign off. So yeah, overall, I'm going to say that this is a steal at around $200. Sure, it's a quartz-powered watch, it's not mechanical, there's nothing super sexy about the movement, but it offers a lot of functionality. The chronograph is very usable. All of the features that are offered by that rotating slide rule bezel, could be value-added features for somebody that maybe has a job where they're just doing a lot of calculations on the fly. Certainly if you're some sort of pilot or aviation enthusiast, for $200, you know, I'm going to say that this is a steal. I think that if you saw my previous video, the Citizen Nighthawk, which is another aviation-inspired pilot's watch with a slide rule bezel, I think that I prefer this one, but I'm going to go ahead and do a full-on side-by-side video of those two watches here in the near future, and we're going to kind of compare and contrast the differences, because there are some significant differences, even though they offer a lot of the same functionality. But overall, I'm going to probably preface that video by saying that I prefer this one, and maybe it's just because I'm a little bit partial to Seiko in general, I don't know. But yeah, that's everything I got for you on the SNA411 Flightmaster. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and like and share, and tell all your friends to watch my videos. That'd be awesome. Down in the comments, or I'm sorry, not the comments, but in the notes section below this video, you'll find links to my social media, including Twitter, Facebook, and of course my Patreon page. If you'd like to support the channel and donate to me through Patreon, go ahead and check out my link to Patreon. Also, I'll have a link to this watch on Amazon if you're interested in picking it up. If you buy it through my Amazon affiliate link, I'll get a small commission, which also helps me out in producing content for the channel. Alright guys, I think that's everything. I'm going to sign off. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Bye.